left, right.
When the harvest is past and the summer is gone and sermons and prayers are no more, when the beam ceases to break.
The history was a burden, but I understood what I had been tasked. I will do this work as long as I can do art. That's the deal. I am looking for a kind of redemption. I would like to give my community back a sense of pride.
It's home and the summer is gone, and Jesus invites thee no more.
Are we everybody rolling? Yeah. So, we have a tape player and tapes. What are these tapes?
They're terrifying is what they are.
Yeah. Deanna Bowen's artworks weave together intimate family stories with untold histories of Black life in Canada. Her process begins with the past. Starting with public archives and family albums, she zeroes in on a poignant image or story and transforms what she finds into powerful works of art. Her vision spans photography, video, sculpture, and installation. But with each work, she disrupts the idea that our shared history can be reduced to a single story. Now, she's preparing her biggest exhibition to date, her first major show in her hometown of Vancouver, the place where her art and her life come together. So these tapes, who would have recorded all of these?
Oh gosh, I got that right. That's my grandmother's handwriting, so she probably recorded it.
Yeah, but that's to make your voice sound, not recording. I want it to be recording.
When the harvest is past and the summer is gone and sermons and prayers are no more, when the beam
That's my grandfather. I've never heard a recording of him that's ever been that clear. Ever. My grandfather's one of 5 preachers that I know of his generation, so I was like deep in this stuff.
When you hear these tapes and when you hear these voices for the first time, does the idea of making an artwork immediately come to mind? Do you feel that impulse somewhere inside, or does that come later? How does it work?
The thing that I was thinking with this last piece was I was thinking about the history of the song. How does a gospel hymn from the Appalachians end up in Vancouver? And then that gets me thinking about, slave migration, the forced migration of my family from Alabama to Oklahoma, and then literally they're being run out of Oklahoma into Canada. I'll get something like this, and I'll just have to sit on it, live with it for a bit, sleep with it, that kind of stuff, and then see what comes up.
I mean, it seems fitting that we're starting with this pile of photographs from your history, from your family's history, because these aren't just memories and artifacts of your family, they're also kind of your raw materials. So what are we looking at here?
Who is this? This is my clan. These are my people. This is my grandfather right after he came into the church. I mean, this also is a discussion about the blackness within a sea of white. So this is my grandfather again in Alberta. These are the men that called him into the church.
It's interesting they have a microphone here.
Yeah.
And I mean, we just listened to those recordings.
I mean, this is the thing. I grew up in a community that was very aware of its importance. So there was always an act of recording going on. Telling stories has been the strategy that we have always used as far as keeping the history alive.
Deanna's family helped build Amber Valley in northern Alberta in the early 1900s, one of several all-black settlements in the province. These communities were founded by formerly enslaved people and their families from the United States. So in 1953, your family leaves Alberta and moves to Vancouver. Why?
It was an incredibly intolerant site. The Klan was all over the place. The Klan would kind of circle around the families and literally harass them on horseback and just come and agitate.
A lot of families have that person who, does the family tree and figures it all out, but not every one of those people is an artist. And I'm curious, for you, what can art do that history can't?
When we talk about that singular line of history, we're really talking about a white singular line of history that does the work of erasing all these other linear narratives. There are many histories flowing all at once. Art, in its non-linearness, gave me an opportunity to piece together something that doesn't flow like this. It flows kind of out like that.
So you've been out in the world as an artist for 25 years.
Yeah.
But things started to really happen for you only a few years ago. And one of the pivotal moments, I think, was a show called Invisible Empires. Can you tell me about that project?
It is a sprawling exhibition that was based on stories my grandfather told me about the Ku Klux Klan in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And Canada continues to have this narrative about there is no such thing here, right?
This is the Reverend James Bevel. This is Mr. Calvin Craig, Mr. George Sly.
There's a piece that is a recreation of a
Reverend
CBC
Bevel.
interview. Reverend James Bevel, who is a civil rights activist, and two Klansmen. And really, I was not so much interested in the Klansmen. I wasn't so much interested in James Bevel. I'm interested in the host.
I think that you two should shake hands on the fact you've got a deal here.
And Robert Hoyt literally is chastising these men for not shaking hands like that's the way that racism gets resolved. Come on, you guys, just shake hands.
Shame on both of you.
Shame on me.
Just shake hands.
Now, are you going to sit down and meet with them, or are you just going to talk about it?
It's hard to know what to say about seeing Klan's robes up. I mean, these are artworks, but they're Klan's robes.
They're Klan's robes. They're Klan's robes.
And I guess it's like you want to speak to it because that's what you're asking as the artist, and it's difficult to do it.
Yeah. But I want you to feel uncomfortable about this. I want you to feel the unease. These images have been disseminated over the last, 50, 60 years. I find it hard to believe that anybody has not seen something like this.
Well, and I think one of the things that strikes me now that I see them not in a photograph, that part of what you're doing is forcing the viewer to have a physical encounter with something they weren't looking at and that hasn't been acknowledged as present.
Producing a Klan robe is a response to seriously thick denial. People saying, I've never seen the Klan before. It literally
In Canada.
In Canada. And so here it is. Now what are you going to do?
You grew up in Vancouver, you lived there until you were 24, and this is the first time you're going home to present your artwork there on a large scale. What are the stakes for you within your family?
My mom thinks that I mess around with history too much. Then she's also come to recognize the importance of the work.
You two are quite close now,
Yeah.
but there was a time when you weren't. What happened?
Queerness. So I didn't talk to her for easily a decade. The research has brought me closer. The research has given me an understanding of the things that she doesn't speak to. Even if I wasn't making work directly about her, it's always been about our relationship.
Deanna's made the trip to Vancouver to install the exhibition she's titled A Harlem Nocturne, after a famous club that was central to Black life and her own family history in the city. The exhibition represents 25 years of Deanna's work and a rare opportunity to share what she's created with the people closest to her. I think everyone in Vancouver just walks toward the mountains all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget that I miss them. You know?
Do you actually?
I miss them. I'm happy this time around. I haven't always been happy coming back to Vancouver. Got a lot of memories, but this is a really good trip. Hey, what's good? What's good? It's my mom, Leora.
Hi, Leora. Yeah. Thanks for doing this with us.
We came here for 929 Kiefer, but 929 Kiefer, the house is not there anymore,
No.
right? So where was it from here?
It would be around here.
This is where you lived? Mm-hmm. And when did you live here? Do you remember?
Well, I'm 76. I was 7 when I came.
What was this neighborhood like 70 years ago? What do you remember about it?
Oh, everybody had a child of some sort, 2 or 3 kids, so there was lots of kids. Everybody knew everybody. I thought it was the best neighborhood I've ever lived in.
This is the happiest place you've ever been?
Yeah.
Leora, do you remember the last time you saw Deanna's artwork?
Do you remember any of it?
You know, the one that had, you said it was a fish, and the fish they didn't look like fish.
I have blocked that because clearly I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, you had to tell me what these things were.
You worked at the Harlem Nocturne for a
Yeah.
while, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's the name of Deanna's show. What was the club like when you worked there?
It was jamming. I mean, it was on the weekends especially, you know, it would be crowds, lots of crowds in there.
So you'll be seeing this show, which is really the first time you'll see Deanna's work in 20+ years. What are your expectations going into the gallery? You know, what do you think you'll feel as you're walking into that space and seeing this work?
Just wish my dad was here so he could see. He always knew. He knew from the very beginning that Deanna was going to be a star.
Yeah.
And I kept telling him, no, she's not.
See there, that right there. That's some motherly love right there.
But you sound like you're proud. You sound like you're proud, Leora. But you have a sense that the exhibition incorporates stories from, you know, your family's history and the history of Black people in the city, right?
And it actually has everything to do with you. It's all about you. It's all about the stories you told me. Because he comes up. Oh, okay. That's not it. So damn cool. CBC has documented my family from 1954, and I've got newsreel footage from 1980. So, I mean, every decade there's something about this family. The extended kind of implications of this research, finding these black bodies, is these are people my mom grew up with. She can say, yeah, I know those people, and the extension of that is that she gets to feel a sense of pride about our history, our blackness, in a city that hasn't always felt that way about us. I'm thinking about being able to right some historical wrongs, about being able to shine the light on particular people that haven't been given enough credit for the work that they've done. There's a ton of history that needs to be found and or rewritten.
The first question is, what was Hogan's Alley?
It's a black community that's not around. It's kind of now become a mythic kind of place that marks the absence of black people in the city.
Partly because of this viaduct,
This
the Georgia Viaduct.
Right? The black community kind of largely was pushed out and kind of filtered into other places to make way for this, urban development. My family was all kind of in this neighborhood, either through performances or as entertainers. But the neighborhood, quite honestly, is where a lot of family members have died. There's, heroin use in my family that goes back to my grandfather's generation, and all of it situated here. The viaduct coming in set off a whole wave of efforts by the city, by the police, to move black people out. It was such a rich entertainment community. This could be the hot spot for black cultural production, black entertainment. All of that stuff goes away, and it's just like this really neat and tidy, there once was this place, Hogan's Alley. So the show is about, no, we were here, we've been here for a long, long time. We're still here, and let me show you where you put us. I'm trying to keep these people as whole, as human. I don't want these people to be a lesson that you forget.
Oh my God, here we are.
Get out of town! Oh, that's so stinking awesome.
Oh, that looks so good. Wow.
That's so great.
And you can see the little smiley faces from the bar, right? So subtly.
Yeah. What I wanted to do somewhere in the city is make reference to the Harlem Nocturne, that site of blackness that is not, I can't access anymore. This is proof that it did exist and that there were live, living people in it. I hope that I've enriched the narrative about the black history in Canada, but I hope it also breaks open some doors. Is the frame here? Oh, cool. Okay. Manage the halo.
Yes, that's it, because it does.
So the show opens tomorrow. How do you feel?
It's funny, because yesterday, I was like, oh, this is great. And now I've got a little bit of nerves coming on. It's this really solid, conceptually, aesthetically sound kind of compilation of materials. It just makes me happy. I feel like I've done the family proud.
And your mother is coming tonight
Yeah.
to spend some time in the show. How are you feeling about that?
I think she's going to be really happy and really pleased with the show. I'm so glad she's coming. You see that? Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, how come my name is on there?
Because she testified.
Oh, is that
Lorena's
what
on there.
I saw that.
This is one of the ads for the Nocturne.
Yeah.
And so I took one of the little newspaper ads and then had somebody blow
Had to blow it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I fill this? So it's like a velvet. When I was growing up, all of my family members, especially my grandparents and my mom, but they talked about something that I could never see. I think to Black people that have been here, I think that this show is an affirmation of the things that they've known and not been able to articulate. That this city is not as tolerant as it would like to be. That's Herman. That's Lenny. There's Eleanor.
It's too bad Mom and Daddy weren't alive, huh?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you got to see it. I'm glad you got to see it. I'm glad you're here. I have not experienced a moment where I have not been preoccupied with writing this history in 25 years. Truthfully, I think I will be a bit of a mess in the sense of trying to figure out who I am after this. I have been this keeper of the history for so long. I don't know what it would necessarily be like to be in the world and not be responsible for that.
When the harvest is past and the summer is gone.
I, at the end of the day, ultimately most care about whether or not these people agree with the way that I've patched it together. These Black people, as long as I've told their story accurately, that's what matters.
And Jesus invites thee no